Hey, hey, hey. All right. Excellent connection. So now, let's do this. Get a new, that's what we're going to be reviewing. This is what we were listening to on YouTube earlier. It did let that one go through, so I guess we can listen to a rated R, Feel Good Hit of the Summer. And let's get this new link and go over here. This time for real. All right, so I'm gonna go boom, boom. Apparently OBS crashed. It did. It told me. It crashed. It said OBS crashed. I guess I got to finally allow the updates, but later. For now, link, try again. This time for real. There we go. There's that. No one cares. That's all right. If they cares, they hate. They're like, yeah. And that sucks. It sucks especially because the chat log was kind of cool, and now everyone's got to come back in here, and it's just like I could have really, if this was an attempt to produce a livelihood for me, right? That would be devastating. It would really, really suck. That would suck. So, frustrations. Here we go. Look at this. We're on Twitter, huh? And that's what made it crash. Like coming onto Twitter. It's like they don't want us to see. See, can I make this a little bit bigger? Okay. So here's me on Twitter, right? This is where everybody hates me. Everyone's like, this is why we will ignore him. And by ignoring him, we will win. We will win not being challenged and having our ideas remain stale and funky and stupid. That's what you win. That's what you win. Now you'll have some, and when I say you, if you're with me, just let me know. Just say like, hey, not me. Okay? That's all it takes. A real quick, fast, easy. Just like, hey, that's it. Hi, I'm here. I'm with you. You can even say, I'm with you, except about this, or I'm here. I wish you'd calm down. Something other than the typical, which is a passive aggressive. It's a passive aggressive, like, Dave Chappelle. All right, I'm not like a huge Dave Chappelle fan. I'm not making. Well, I kind of am making a political comment about this. In yesterday's stream, I went on a tangent about Matt Leck. Matt Leck is the worst. All right, he's the worst because he should know better. I don't talk shit about David Griscom because he's kind of like just like a nice, sweet guy, I think, trying to help his delusion about a movement, which is not his, well, it's his fault. But people like Leck that do know better, but are continuously making a choice to be culturally opposed to even the appearance of this other, which is their whole playbook. It's like, what do you want us to do? Oh, what's his name? Ilyich Vladimir Lenin? What do you want us to do? What's from the Lenin playbook? Oh, it's not Lenin, it's Marx. No, it's not. It's not. And they hide. They hide behind their Sam Cedars, and they hide behind their the little teeny bit of a following that they have. And they use it to police and leverage the same power differential. I mean, it's not the same, the numbers, the metrics, like the percentage in the disparity, the number that would describe how close it is from one is the same. The scale is much greater on the larger political conversation. But people like Leck, they just disgust me because they continue to double down on this like caveat of a culture war. It's not out in the open, right? So like at first, anyways, I if you're curious about my my take, it's there. What would be ideal would be Mr. Leck to confront this. But he won't, because that would validate me. And that's how they see it, that it would validate me and it would justify this, that, and the other. So you ignore it until it goes away. This like hyper platforming worry, concern, ethos, I don't know, pseudo ethos is disgusting. And nothing human disgusts me. They refuse to let fair criticism, which is an argument I'm sure they hear all the time. They hear people making that. So when there is, most of the time, there's no substance. There's no, see, grievance is a strong word. I was going to say there's no justifiable grievance behind the complaint. But grievance is kind of like loaded language, begging the question. It's more an honest criticism. It's imminent critique is what it is. The Kantian, you use the same values, principles, and goals that we'll say OP, the original poster, the pundit, the OP, whatever, your potential interlocutor, you use the same principles, values, and expressions that they themselves have affirmed. All right, you steel man their position. Right? You say, this is what you believe, right? This is the position that you take. This is what you argue that this is your reasoning. And they say, well, yeah, kind of this, or that you establish, yes, okay, this is my position. This is your position. We both have an understanding about that. Now we can move forward with the critique. The imminent critique is using your very own expressed values to show how it undermines your actions, your effects undermine the hoped for cause. It is complicated. So as I've studied and also given large parts of myself, like emotionally, to this, I don't know what you call it. It's real life. Like people are not just tempted. People do say online is not real life. In real life, it's like this. I'm guilty of doing that too. Online is real life. There are strange differences, to be sure, and that's not just you can't just generalize and be like it's all the same thing, real life. But it is real life. It's so much so that it competes with actuality. Now, actuality is a different bucket form. But the politics that are out there and the things that we find people expressing and espousing are predictable. They're predictable. So instead of allowing the discourse to evolve into something more functional and accessible, and what's important here, especially considering the imminent critique part, representative of what the majority actually believes, compared with, or at least presented simultaneously with, the steel manning, right? What would you call it? There's a good word, but I'm gonna waste too much time trying to think of it. Damn it, I want to remember the word. Substantiating, maybe. Let's say substantiating like it's the steel man effect, except with general ideas like climate change. Corporate lobbying from fossil fuel companies, things like that. We can establish what what it actually is instead of all the hyperbolic culture war, like, I'm getting back to Dave Chappelle, okay? It's all political, as the conservatives say. They say, of course, all this Trump trial stuff is political. Yeah, it is. But it doesn't mean that he's not guilty or, worth prosecuting either. Right? The conversation is broad and nuanced. Of course it's political. Everything is political. Political, social, economic. Everything is that at the same time. And by the way, those three things are the same thing. Society, economics, and politics, from a human perspective, which is all we have available to us, are the same thing. They are the same thing. You know this. And if you don't, then... Aristotle, famously said the man is a political animal, and that's been played with and built on through the years. That doesn't mean that it's more true because people have repeated it, but there's something there. I'm just referencing that conversation. It's a thing. It's an object. We reference that. Okay, I'm not attaching myself to it, but what I am attaching myself to is that in the end, in actuality, society, or matters of sociological import, economics, and politics, political science, politics, they are all the same thing. They're very much so the same thing. And all of our political squabbling really comes down to one question. Are we going for power to the person or power to the people? And I think the knee-jerk response, I would guess that a poll would come back saying, power to the people, definitely. Are you sure? What are you? Are you people or a person? Could we be both at the same time, perhaps? Yeah, but not just to be taken for granted. I think that needs to be, like I'm saying, if you're out there and I'm saying, you know what, your answer is going to be stupid and the things you're going to say are stupid, and you're like, not me. I'm saying, just give me just a little sign that you're there and you know you're not part of the problem, or that you see yourself as the solution and I'm part of the problem. Just engage on what is real. Don't just ignore me. That's like, I'm going to survive this, but you see people like Bad Empanada get turned into potential supervillains because of the alienation and being ostracized and maligned, and without anybody substantiating the claims that are made against them, it becomes a very effective way to kill somebody's reputation. Certain charges and claims carry more weight than others, like say it was one of a sexual nature, and the sexual nature included predation. Like it doesn't have to be true for that to just kill somebody's entire business, right? They say, well, that's capital interest or whatever. Oh, now we're making no sense and we're making it all worse. Dave Chappelle said, crazy is the most offensive thing you can call somebody. Like, it really is a shitty thing to do to call somebody crazy because it's dismissive. It takes whatever somebody's position is and it says, it's not even worth thinking about. It's not real. It's just crazy, right? You're way too good at doing that. You're way too good at saying, yeah, that's just crazy. We've got whole collective groups of people like feeling like it's a virtue to do this. And they're missing the point that has been there since Socrates, if not before, probably before. It's probably been, came with the frame in our human design. That the conversation about ideal government, the social, political, economic ideal, comes down to, now there are other ways to think about this, but I think this is a useful dialectic. It comes down to oligarchy versus democracy. That was the dilemma until. Can you see this? Can you read? It says America. It says American history. Until the framers framed what is so wonderful and worthy of appreciation. Conservatives and these phony originalist theocratic jerks are poisoning our grace, right? Like the reason that America is exceptional and has the potential to continue to be so, not for America's sake, not for the power to the person, to just a few people or whatever. I'm sure anyone that internalized that question I asked a bit ago, are you for power to the people or power to the person? Because you can't have both, right? Maybe we can. We'll talk about that later. But I'm sure anyone that was on the power to that any recognition of power to the person being the central ethic would be like, oh, that's so blah, 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 blah. You're probably already off and running with your arguments, and you will never bring them to the ground to find, because if your assumptions are right, if you're right to be as charged or as certain and convicted in that consideration as you tend to be, then pushing on these ideas or inviting pushback on the ideas, testing your assumptions, will only make them more effective. Their utility will go up. However you want to describe it, it make more good. When you guard, and you not even just guard, but you proactively police any attack, like, oh, it's just crazy, then you're proving the point that oligarchies are necessary, because democracies will mow your ass down by the first tyrant that manipulates the group. It happens over and 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 over again in history. So what does America do? America looks at this, and yes, they were white landowning slave owners. All that stuff is true, all right? For the most part, there were exceptions. But you can't just whataboutism the whole thing and be like, See, you're stupid. I knew you were a Nazi. Crazy. That is so lazy. It's so lazy. And I'm not saying it like, you need to be more disciplined. I'm saying it like it's truly lazy. And it's like, I don't know, like your kids need help or something. And you kind of just like throw a juice box at them or something. You're like, I'm a great parent. That's what it looks like to people who are paying attention. In fact, it looks so bad that people are drawn to voting Republican. People don't vote Republican because they believe in small government. Maybe the old people do, and that continues to work. But people vote Republican because they hate the other side. And guess what? Matt Leck's, cultish fanaticism and his presence online does the same thing, which is in the opposite, which is the reason for these people to vote that way anyways. He doesn't understand that Occupy Wall Street and the Tea Party movement are the same thing. Two sides, same coin. That's not an opinion. It's a fact. Unions have always come with racism, nationalism, and worse. They're rednecks. They degrade the product. They make it more expensive. And they burden the employer with the responsibility to care for you from cradle to grave. That is not in the design of government to be... Anyways, let's get back to the framers. The framers say, it's oligarchy versus democracy. Now you say oligarchy, it could be like a plutocracy, it could be a meritocracy, it could be a technocracy. There are different like metrics and standards of what the ideal is. But, somewhere in between like a technocracy and a meritocracy is what the oligarchy... It's like pretend we got thing one and thing two. Like the label on thing two is not just oligarchy. It's like representation by proven authorities in regard to this is what lobbyists and special interests achieve in Washington now. So the system is corrupt, but the framers set it up so that there would be checks and balances, and we would have not a democracy, not an oligarchy, but a republic. Okay. Where we are the citizens rule, the consent of the governed is given. But we have democratic institutions. We don't have a direct democracy, and thank God we don't. The narrative is probably already pulling at your heart, like, oh, this guy is the worst. I'm not. I've just worked my way through these problems, and I care about them, and I see how they bear out. Like being terminally online doesn't stop you from seeing things, but I'm just not. Oh, no, it wasn't until recently. So over the past year, I've really been looking at where influence and ideas come from, where they start, where they go. It's like putting dye in water or dye in like the drink. I don't know if you've ever had like internal imaging done, but they'll give you a dye. And this is done in other things too, like stress tests and stuff. So you can see the flow of the blood and you can gauge, where it's going. Many other things this technique is applied to. It lets you see where stuff's going. When you want homeostasis, when you want something to work like on its own, that's what you do. You don't micromanage every little mechanic in it unless, which I don't think we can get to this point. You can never make the ideal real. If you do, then you have reduced, and I who said this? Some like post-neo-Marxist, which I'm not against. I'm as far as Marx and Engels go, I would love to have hours-long conversations around economic, no less historically economic. Marx is so interesting. He was a philosopher, but his dad was too. He's like, he hated that. So I'm not a philosopher. It's like, I'm not rock and roll. I'm punk rock, or I'm not this. And it's like, you're trying to separate yourself from the previous generation. He was very generationally minded, of course, right? Critical theory and class theory and all that is flawed because he did not have the fullness of information to gauge his theory on. Plus, they were just getting started at this, but they lived in a haze of like poverty, debauchery, weirdness, cigarettes, I think alcohol. I don't know. It was not a pleasant, their lives were not filled with joy, right? That being said, I don't use that as the standard for whether I listen to someone or not. Someone's like, why would I listen to them? They're miserable. What a fucking Andrew Tate waste of space. Anyways, is anybody here? Does anybody care? Is this actually happening? Doesn't look like it. What a fucking shame. It's just insane. It's insane. The media landscape and the way people operate here is just insane. So look, I put this link up, right? I don't expect that people are gonna like love me and be like, oh, it's Tim. He's doing the. I'm gonna drop everything I'm doing to watch Tim. You know, I don't expect that. But the world has billions of people, right? I did the math right. Billions of people, and you know, I have experience in the public realm. Like, this is not my first rodeo, guys. And if anyone cared to like look around, you might be able to line me up with some other things. I'm out here, okay? But through this facet, this proves my point that when you're honest and direct and you're not here to fuck around and you tell people, look, I'm not here to fuck around. Aren't we supposed to be concerned with this situation? Aren't we supposed to be concerned with the... Okay, now it's green again. Aren't we supposed to be concerned with the nature of politics, with the tensions in our society, with the failing economy around us? No, we should be, right? So the next step would be is what is the economy? Where does it start? Where does it end? When you put the die in, where does the homeostatic, life occur? Where are we going to see the living organism move, and how does it move? If you're an animator and you're to animate like animals, you're going to do Lion King, right? You go and you look at the animals. You can't just look at a picture and be like, I've got it. You need to understand locomotion. You understand like dynamic movement. One paw is down, one paw is up. How do all four move? There's, is there a slink to the torso? Does the tail counterbalance where the head is? Stuff like that. You can rehearse the details, but until you have an internal sense for that movement and the nature of that homeostasis, you're going to be an inferior craftsman for that task. So we must establish what we are looking at, how the thing behaves, and where we can engage on that. What options do we have? But nobody gets to that. Nobody gets to that. All we get to is like, look at this chart. It's a chart that says all the left-handed people were suppressed, and that's the same thing as trans people. It's not the same thing, but that doesn't mean that trans people shouldn't get maximum advocacy right now in the face of actually tyrannical and life-threatening legislation that is designed to scare, frighten, and eliminate a type of person. Now, the public needs to understand that that's really focused at children. But if we got into the conversation, instead of being like, it's just anything, let people decide. If you've got a rash of trendy fucking California parents getting their kids to transition, all of a sudden, I think that we should be concerned. The question then becomes, do we have any right to, so what? We can be concerned, we can study it, but what does that matter? Now we see how certain opinions and certain intensities may substantiate the efforts of conservatives and worse. And we say, look, you're just feeding into that. I understand the reasoning. I understand why people think that way about things. But the reasoning is wrong. That's not a binary. That's not to say then the conservatives are right. And this is why it's like I have to anticipate all the stupidity in the conversations out here, because none of them are moving forward. We have only advantaged people like Mehdi Hassan and Sam Cedar, people who, Destiny and Vosh, people that can, TYT, David Pakman. I'm glad that Bo of the Fifth Column, got into the pantheon, because he's of a different model. He's not confrontational, but that's whom we have. What do you call elevated? That's whom we've elevated. We look for the confrontational, the warriors, the champions of a cause, but we don't substantiate the cause itself. We just like the effect. And that's human nature. So you can't be like, that's wrong, so you should stop doing it. No, we take note of that and we put it in the collection. Now, already the stuff that I have said. Now, granted, OBS crashed, and I understand maybe if people were coalescing around the last link and this is a different link, but it should be the same link, right? Because just the general live stream function for somebody's channel is like always the same one, unless you schedule the stream. So it should be the same link, right? But it just breaks my heart that there's no feedback. And I know that puts a lot of pressure on people, right? Like, let's say you are listening and you say, you know what, I kind of dig what you're saying, but it's hard to understand where you're coming from. And some of it goes over my head. And these are some of the complaints I've heard, and they're fair. But let's say you're like, no, I completely get you, but you're just a dick, right? Like, that's not fair, because you should be empathizing with my frustration, not the effect based on your insecurity. I do this too, and that's why I'm explaining the rationale like that. It's like a hurt dog will holler. If your arm is hurt, right? Like it's still healing, and it, like it got broken or strained or sprained or something, and someone like squeezes you, they're like, oh golly, it's an indication that there's something that's not necessarily unhealthy, but not that you need to favor it, right? That it's an exception from how the rest of your sensitivities align, right? A hurt dog will holler. Where the dog is hurt, it's going to tell you. And if you touch someone on a certain spot, or you bring up a certain idea and you get a reaction like that, it's an indication that you're hitting something, where, and if you're going for an attack-oriented approach, then, that's good news for you, right? Vosh knows this. Destiny knows this. And you guys love them. They hate each other. Hassan hates that they do that way. My friend Emo Dragon, who's like the only one who's been willing to like be a little skeptical. He's like, at least doesn't hate me, like at least like curious and wants to support the better inclinations that I have. But I'm pretty sure it bothers him that I don't toe the entire party line or kowtow to the culture bullshit. Like, and I sense that he could as well evolve and ascend into greater understanding, as may you. And look to your left, look to your right. Maybe not them. No, them too. All it takes is good faith. I don't know. This is what I actually honestly know, which is already a problem, because as I expressed earlier, a common element in the online culture is for people to know everything. You're like, who was the commanding officer in charge of like, I don't know, the flamethrowers in the Korean War? It's like, Oh, I know. I just don't want to tell you. This is the general way of things. And that's very frustrating. Very, very, very frustrating. And of course, I know, because I've played that way too. I was younger and I'm still stupid in those regards. If someone's like, you don't know, you're talking about politics and you don't know, blah, 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 blah. That's very common. And it's tragic, because it totally shuts somebody down. And if they have any initial interest in the topic itself, you should be encouraging that. Good teachers know this. If somebody has genuine curiosity, but it's naive and maybe a little Dunning-Kruger intense, you reward that. You carry it through. You don't like shove it down and what's the word? You don't dismiss it at the very least, no less attack it like you shouldn't have shown your face to begin with. This is the effect, and those effects matter much more than universal health care. Like I said yesterday, universal health care, nope, not until we can agree on what health is. You'll say all kinds of stupid shit, but the thing is, the only reason you want universal health care, which in theory and practice I do support, but I don't support people's motivations. You don't reward people until they understand the value of the thing that they have. That doesn't mean capital value. Capital is a medium of expression for value. It is not the value itself. Dumbass. Oh, this anti-capitalism is just like, he's so 8th grade. He's so Dunning-Kruger minus actually having read a book. There's nothing to encourage except stupidity there. And that's what we do. We encourage this stupidity that makes the partisan divide even tighter. You want universal health care as a theatric, as a performative victory. It's performative. You wanted it for so long, so bad, that you're like some horny fucking teenager. You're going to come before you get anywhere near your lover. And that's not what you want. You don't want that, do you? They don't want that. I mean, like, I don't know the right metaphor to get through to people. Talk about sex, talk about war, talk about religion, talk about culture, music, art, talk about, media, TV, journalist media. I mean, history, economics, memes. What the fuck gets through to people? Let's make sure again. Nobody here still. Someone's here. That's exciting. Okay, I'll be a little nicer. One person's here, and and I like that. But so I can start working my way down the list because we have real stuff to get to. I was kind of seeing if maybe people would trickle in, but come on, this is crazy. I don't expect everyone to kiss my ass and be like, "You're so cool, you're so great." None of that. I don't expect any of that. I would feel very uncomfortable, and I would discourage any of that if it came my way. But the interaction is necessary. People are so worried about having a perfect interaction or presenting themselves as, I don't know, anti-dorky or something. They're just, the Lacanian fuckery that's going on the other side of your skull is tremendously tragic. Most people find that the language, and I don't mean the actual words like you speak English or German or, but the vernacular, the nature, the flow and the vibe of your language, right? Because like if you live in New England and you make more than $60,000 a year, and you're of one particular faith versus another, we can kind of start drawing a profile on the language, the nature of the language, and the familiar, the community that fills that out. Right? Which is just an organism, so it's moving in its own right, but much more slowly and independently of other cultures and languages. But you've got this language in New England where you've got then like in the ghetto, right? In Mississippi versus Chicago versus Toronto versus, you know what I mean? Like, or go, to Tijuana versus Belize or Guatemala or Honduras. Like, and you just go to another place. We're going to find different languages literally and subjectively. The divisions never end, but the patterns do. And people have different like expectations of reverence, piety, conformity, orthodoxy. The word incoherent is thrown at me quite a bit. I don't speak incoherently. Never have, never will. That demonstrates to me that you are ignorant. Like you don't understand what I'm saying. That doesn't mean what I'm saying doesn't make sense. And instead of arguing that, you assume that you have to accept the loss and you're going to have diminished standings in your social pretend hierarchy. Now, it's not pretend because look, I got nothing going on. Looked like someone came in for all of 1 second. It's disgusting. And it's like impossible not to be rabidly distracted by all this. It's fucking crazy. And you've got terrible content creators. Terrible. They're stammering isn't even the word. They never get going. And the best ones that are out there are only imitations of others. Which is fine. Again, we need role models, we need examples, and we need to enact our process. But nobody's there. Nobody's there. The ones that have promise are pure imitations. And that's fine because, like I was saying, the Illuminati versus legal consideration, the more people that are involved and saying, you know what, I don't care if I'm perfect or I'm ready or whatever, I'm just doing this, the more potential we have to actually thrive as a culture. Now, the goal, the one collective goal is we cannot have Trump win office again. Biden maintaining office isn't much better, but at least we're not guaranteed to die in a fiery, fucking catastrophe like we would be with Trump. Trump does not care about anything other than his standings according to the language that he speaks, he wants approval from. Which is shifted because, like with me and like with many other people, we're searching for an audience because we know that there are things to exploit, right? Which is what he and others do. They pander to a populist sentiment and they use dissatisfaction and the energy of grievance, not an actual grievance itself. Better jobs. Okay, what's that mean? Awareness, which is not really a right-wing thing, but awareness. What does awareness do? It doesn't really do anything. Well, it kind of does. It allows for confluency later. It brings people together, right? I mean, that sounds cheesy. I don't mean like it brings people together, kumbaya. I mean, people that may not have otherwise been in the same forum, and then they can coalesce. Awareness brings coalescence. But I had to think about that for years to come up with that answer. Long story. But people recognize, and now when I say people, I mean, this could be someone of a sociopathic nature. It could be someone of a privileged class. It could be someone who has achieved or is searching for gnosis. It could be someone like me that sees things. It could be someone like Plastic Pills or Vlad Vexler or what's his name? Adam Conover or Sam Cedar once he gets through this Leninist Matt Lech period. Which I understand it's attached to Brooks and there's all this stuff. And Sam Cedar, from what I understand, just wants to just kind of do his thing. And he doesn't want to have to make my point, pull up the, look for, it was an M Majority Report day. It was Brandon, Binder, and Emma. And they were, and Lech, in voice alone. A little bit of Bradley, I think. And they were discussing Marianne Williamson. Look at the thumbnail alone, okay? What are I think the name on the video is like, what are the limitations facing Marianne Williamson to achieve the presidency or something cumbersome like that. And the image they used is like, they do this. They it's part of their aesthetic. They'll take an image and they'll like pull the contrast up, pull the highlights out. And I think, it does kind of look neat. But they do it in typical fashion where the only way they know how to deal with political content is through the ridicule of a pundit. They'd be like, Dave Rubin's so stupid. Well, he is, but that's the only way they know how to do politics. Tim Pool is so stupid, but they don't engage with him to defeat him. They just, where it's like, I think Sam is like a comedian and, he doesn't want the responsibility of being a spokesperson for an insanely intense partisan culture war, which is, possibly, it's possible that it could evolve is not the right word, develop into an actual war, which would only escalate and grow, and it would become total. It's insane that that's the reality. I don't want that to be the reality. I have no fetish about the end of the world. In fact, I fought against that idea until very, very recently. I just accepted the truth. I accepted the truth that people will not save themselves from the effects that we are perpetuating. And the ones that are even modestly interested, no less moderately interested in like addressing the issues and being oppositional to, because I'm not against someone saying, I don't know really what I am, but I know what I'm not. Okay. I know I'm not my parents or, this is how people work. I'm not against that effect. I think that is a good, that's as good of a motivation as any others. It's what happens after that matters. And once people become accelerated into that, then you either go here, here, or here. And if you try to just go where you go, you ain't going nowhere. That's the deal. That's the line. Listen to my voice. Look at my face. Look at the art. Look at the topics that I've dealt with. Consider the value in someone that can articulate difficult political, not just descriptions of parties, but anticipate the agendas and the actions that will occur based off of, the insight I've got on these politicians. Maybe not everyone wants to sit there and listen to me like talking this academic, laborious style, but maybe 10 people would. It's weird and it's wrong that no one is here. There's something fucked up and wrong with that. And they let that pressure cook you. And when you get cooked, they say, see, that's how it works. And they probably won't even say see unless you're garnering attention from the other side or something like that. Or it can advantage them in the algorithm because let's say there's something on TikTok where it's like psycho I don't know what they'd call me, Gen X or whatever, yells at cloud or something and it becomes a thing, then they would attach themselves to that because in the algorithm, their video would be attached to it. Wow. Left is best. Left is shit is what it is. You know, you're just insulating the anti-capitalist people, and the anti-capitalist people want to see it burn just as much as the conservatives do. But the conservatives say they want it to burn because Jesus is going to come back or some shit. Like, it's insane. You can't save people from these effects. And the real dilemma is here, the ones that haven't even the smallest chance of affecting a better outcome are being led by the nose to be charitable into into a cult that doesn't even have a structure or an incentive in it. It's just social currency. And it's not even social currency. It's the appearance. It's the illusion of social currency. Oh my God. There are people with gnosis like Adam Conover. And there are people like Ryan Grimm. I think Anna Kasparian is getting some, but she's not completely confident. I think there is a difference between female and males. The female and male mind, they are different. We are what we are as one, okay? Gender theory is another thing that you can't be simple about it. If you're going to talk about it, let's talk about it. But be consistent and work your way through to the logical conclusion. Don't just maintain the nebulosity because it's inconvenient to face facts. You could say, well, are those really facts? You know, that's the consensus. That's what people think. But is that a fact? I mean, you could do that. We could say, where are you sourcing that assumption? And you don't say it just to sound like, where are you getting your sources from? This is something I've heard from people. You don't use citations. I'm already heavy and dense enough as it is. I'd be happy to provide citations if people said, hi, I'm part of your community now, and I would like to help you organize this difficult process and project that you've been bleeding from your pores to get any little bit of traction. Man, people are the fucking worst. They're the worst. And the ones that are like the best, the leftward ones, are worse too. You say that math doesn't work? Well, at least you're being critical about something. Thank you. No, you're not there and you're not being critical, and it's never going to happen because there is a contest against me. They say, oh, we don't care about you. I don't know who you are. Blah, 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 blah. The proof is in the pudding. Nobody has this little interaction. Nobody. And I got music too. So, I mean, like, I got music, I got art. Like, it's an experiment. It's an experiment. But as I profess that and say it is an experiment because I want data. I want to see if this is done, what happens, what do people like, what do people respond to, where are their sensitivities. I've seen them respond to this, so perhaps if I demonstrate a character similar to that. But no, because the people that are keeping the gate understand what I'm doing. They understand that I don't have the guardrails that their little fucking cult demands. And they want to make me into Dave Rubin. That's the model that they want to compare me to. They want to be like, you're like Dave Rubin, but I'm not, because I actually know shit. And I know what pain is, and I know what experience is, and I know a lot more than that. And I can back it up. So instead of giving me the platform or the opportunity to back it up, they make up things. They say, I think the one that would be closest to effective, but I still see through it, and someone that was looking would too, would be, well, they can, a Majority Report loves to do this. They can call up. No, not unless you're a member. Well, it's not, if you, look, tell us your area code. They won't. It would be so easy. And I have given articulate, careful, kind criticism. I have given insight and direction and coalescence. I've given all the things that are helpful, but because it doesn't walk that line, I make them nervous. And Leck and his cultish bullshit would see me as obnoxious. So they search. It's like groping in the dark. The new one is Arrested Development. He's gonna trot that out for a little bit longer. Maybe not, because I commented and he knows I'm on to him with that one. But you grope in the dark, and because you have this prefixed audience that grew because people are hoping for someone to actually move the needle. Instead of it being this Republican and Democrat, You go for a synthesis, they call you a centrist and you're worse than conservatives. It's not centrism to look for synthesis in the meaningful disagreement. Centrism is not taking the worst public aspects of the argument and giving half to each. That's not. Maybe there have been centrist politicians or people who call themselves centrist, but essentially centrism in practice should be, because in theory it is, it should be more like synthesis in a dialectic. You can have opinions about that. You could disagree. I'm not saying like you have to agree with me about them making other people agree with them. It's not a have to. It's not a right or wrong. It's a process. And it's one that people should be much more practiced in. But all they're practiced in is groupthink, tone policing, confirmation bias, and laziness in regard to not testing their assumptions. So we got a lot to get through. There's no we, apparently, but that's okay. I'm used to that. I've had more sex. I've had more love. I've had more drugs. I've had more, maybe not money, but maybe. I've had more travel. I've had more than you. If I didn't say it, would you believe me then? This is one of the problems we're going to deal with in the trial of Socrates. The trial of Socrates is the first thing we're going to look at here. Now, remember, Twitter. This is me on Twitter. I'm the one true Tim now. I was listed as the Antichrist. There is still... Now, this is a weird thing. Like if I duplicate the screen, it may populate with more notifications now, but we're just... So, new question. Now the Republican supermajority in North Carolina legislature has overridden the governor's veto of a 12-week abortion ban. Could the governor pardon every person who gets an abortion and any doctor who gives it? I mean, sure, but who cares, my friend? Like, I like you, Southpaw leftist, but it's like you're in the middle, and that's what, of course, you get 4 likes, and it was out 8 minutes ago, but you'll get up to 200. We essentially start at the same time. I saw this guy, Southpaw leftist, at first, and, you know, he's kind of like in the middle, logging, but then he changed his name to, because before it was very left. It was like left-handed lefty or something. No, Tulin, no. She's such a fucking troublemaker. No. Come over here if you're going to go anywhere. He's awesome. Okay, he's awesome. He's an amazing artist. He's brilliant. He checks things out. He's diligent. He's a critical thinker. But he's part of the cult. He is, and you are. It might not be the same cult, but you're part of the cult. You're afraid to step outside that line because the incentive is to achieve the social approval. The incentive is, you know... But like, we're going to have a bunch of bullshit in my notifications. It's going to be fucking stupid. You know what? Let's look at them. Let's see how fucking stupid they are. Off this logic, there was nuance, contrast, and proper explanation to Trump's cages. You defend child murder, go fuck yourself. You equivocate and make it all worse. Fucked myself. Nah. Play your predictable canned tunes as the world burns. Holier nothing. You equivocate and make it all worse. Silly little cult fodder kids. Play your predictable canned tunes as the world burns. Holier than nothing. Get hip. Look me up. Part of the problem. You. Okay, you equivocate and make it all worse. Silly little cult fodder kids. Play your predictable canned tunes as the world burns. And you call everyone else the villain. Else lazy and assumed bullshit. Yeah, we go. You equivocate and make it all worse. Silly little cult fodder kids. Play your predictable canned tunes as the world burns, and you call everyone else lazy. Wait, and you call everyone else... No, they're going to read that as lazy. Assumed bish. Let's just do that. And you call everyone else lazy and assumed bullshit. Play your predictable canned tunes as the world burns, and you call everyone else some lazy and assumed bullshit. Holier than nothing. Get hip, look me up. Part of the problem, you. There we go. And look. My friend, Albert. Oh. He is one of the only good ones. You are one thing mainly, the best, because he is. This all smells like the stank of the USA. What is this? What is all this about? This all smells like the stank. Pretty easy. Too easy. So this is what I do. This is what I do, right? Okay? I mean, like, it's not like people are just so fucking irritatingly fucking frustrating, like fucking fuck for real. Like what do I got to do to get any traction with a conversation that matters? What do I got to do? Now, someone would probably say, "Oh, you say something that matters." Oh, that's cool. I got some more, but still no one is like that, but okay. Let's just retweet that, and I'm going to log out, and we're going to get down to business now. Okay. Trial of Socrates. Is that showing for you guys? There you go. Good. Now, let's get this actually oriented, because I think I expanded the page. We don't necessarily need this up, but it'll help keep me on track. And if anybody, wanted to kind of like zone out while I'm talking, at least there's a paragraph or so here. Okay, the trial of Socrates. I'm no expert on this. There are people that are. The reason I want to talk about it, the reason I put it out in what should be the front is, what is it? It's 10:30 now. Let's say this is where prime time begins. Thank you for coming. This is the Tim Show. It could be our show. It could be the us show. It could be. It'd be fun. It would be better than fun. It would be bitchin' rad, based AF. Come get some. Let's go, etc., etc. It could be. But as is, thank you for coming to the Tim Show. I got my first, well, that wasn't even my first. There was a little bit of momentum, but it got clocked out because of copyright infringement. As I explained for the past several hours, I am experimenting, or have been to some extent, because I need to see what happens. Well, does this work? Does this not work? Do people like this? I want maximum feedback so I can do maximum refinement and be efficient and optimize my time and efforts, because this is a complicated mess out here. We're dealing with politics, society, and economics, which I'm asserting are the same thing. They're the same thing. The effect and response that I get in general is mysteriously lacking. Now, I don't expect to be like fucking Michael Jackson out here or something. I don't expect anything other than what seems reasonable. And that's not asking something from you. That's saying that, considering there is so much traffic and so much time spent looking for political assessments that help you sound like you know what you're talking about when you talk about it. That's one utility. The other is to give you an understanding of what it looks like when someone does have command over the information. Because there's a big difference between like Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz and people that try to command an air of authority and play up to like the toxicity in the culture that they represent, as well as, or not as well as people like Josh Hawley compared to, who's an actually good, you know what? I don't know if, what's his name? Julian Castro. He was part of the House insurrection impeachment proceeding. He helped conduct the prosecution. I don't know what it's called in the Senate like that. And I liked him, but that's a problem in the Democratic Party. That's a problem in politics. Likable does not equal good, right? Katie Porter is a good example of how that is so. It sounds like she took some money from sources and things that she shouldn't have. And I don't know. It doesn't seem like people got the memo on that. People still think she's this badass hero, and she may recover from that, but I don't care enough to look into a California congressperson. She's Congress, right? Not Senate. Feinstein is. Anyways, good is not the same thing as likable, and that is a big problem with people. This is one of the reasons that democracy needs checks. We need to have democratic institutions, not a direct democracy. A direct democracy is one person, one vote. I agree with that when it comes to people as residents. People who live in the United States should not have to be citizens to vote. If they have an address, they should be able to vote. Even if they don't have an address, there should be some consideration towards getting them established as a human instead of checking them culturally, refereeing them against what the standard is supposed to be. Standards are hugely important. And when we talk about Democrats versus Republicans, we need to establish what that standard is, because they're going to blur it so much in contrast with what's effective. They're going to be looking for what's effective, just like I am. But and we'll see that and we'll say, oh, they're selling out, or we'll describe it in many different ways that are designed to dismiss it. By dismissing it, we don't have to actually deal with it then. This is human nature. You guys are familiar with this. You just don't want to admit that you're part of the problem. We are all part of the problem until we decide to be part of the solution. And I would suspect that you've had those moments where you say, I want to be part of the solution. As the MC5 says, well, someone introduced him. I don't know if it was Abby Hoffman, but it's someone with very Abby Hoffman energy. It takes 5 seconds, brothers and sisters, 5 seconds to decide whether you're going to be part of the problem or you're going to be part of the solution. 5 seconds, you must choose. It's pretty powerful. I give you a testimonial, the MC5. It's a really, really good bit of history. But anyways, it takes 5 seconds, right? But the nature of those 5 seconds, the energy, all of it, you don't get those moments very often. So I'm sure that you've had them and you say, yeah, I chose. But you chose based off the energy of the group, not off of the principle itself, which is fine. That's what we do, okay? Think about concerts, Rage Against the Machine. Rage Against the Machine gets everyone to be like, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. And it's like, we'll kill cops if we see them, oh, tear them to bits. And it's like, why? Because they're bad. No, it's because it feels good for you to be part of a mob. That's what it is. Now, in some ways that helps, because we don't have control over anything, and the ones that do have control disadvantage us even more as they do what they do for their reasons. So feeling like there's a swell of populist, momentum that is not only capable of contending with the powers that be, but is overwhelmingly more present, advanced, large, blah, blah, blah. We're indulging that fantasy. Okay? It's not good politics. It's not activism. It's none of that. It's mobbishness. And you say, well, where's mobbishness with Rage Against the Machine, though? And they're woke. No one says woke, I know. But I'm making a cartoonish example of it because that's what it is. And again, I don't mean, I do mean to pick on the Majority Report because they're trafficking and they're appraising these units of currency that we traffic in. If people were original thinkers, or the Majority Report were an institution or entity that encouraged people to look at things for themselves, I wouldn't be saying this. But it's a cultural affect. It's a sense of humor. It's a roster of reactions to have locked and loaded, and it's a binary. You're either with it or you're against it. And there's the illusion of having some wiggle room. We let people decide for themselves. No, you don't. No, you don't. It was really fun to watch Sam Cedar like dispatch libertarian after libertarian. But that was a long time ago. And libertarians are now cozying up with conservatives because they believe the globalists are financing arms and more in Ukraine because U.S. capital interests want to maintain the hegemony. And now there are oil companies that have offered to help Ukraine with their infrastructure after the war is over. So it's like, aha, gotcha. These narratives that are out there are the problem. People don't look at information and say, well, that's pretty extreme. Let me make sure I understand what the context is. Let me make sure I understand what the arguments are that are out there. Is there disagreement that's legitimate? Like with Israel, right? Like Zionism, what Theodore Herzl, or I forget the guy's name, but the guy that did the Zionist movement was doing such in the name of secularism, well, in the name of preserving Jewish people's lives as the need for in a Jewish land. I mean, it's convenient. It makes sense that it would be Israel. There was a need for that. There was an argument there, but not a good one. Now, as far as where we go from here, like all of the things that have happened up to this point, the many Arab wars, the ethnic cleansing that Israel has perpetrated against Palestinians, all of this over the decades and decades and decades, while America continues to fund that effect. And Bibi Netanyahu is like ramping up his right-wing rhetoric more every second. We need to talk about it in a way that's not just, oh, you have criticism against Israel, you're an anti-Semite. You've got absolutely faithful and righteous, like 18,000th generation Jewish people that are running for office saying, look, I love Israel, but funding the war machine while you twist the narrative around Palestinians reacting, naturally, it might not look classy. That's the big argument. Oh, they're just so dingy. They're dirty. They if they wanted to do something organized, they could do this, that, or the other. And it's all horse shit. It's total bull, horse, elephant shit. So like, how do we address that? We address it by looking at things like Elon Musk saying anti-Semitic shit about George Soros, and stuff like that. And we'll deal with it like on a tertiary, like reactive level, where it's like, how does the cultural emotion line up? How are we supposed to respond to this? Well, it's clearly anti-Semitic. So, TYT had Emma Vigeland on there yesterday, and that was awesome. That was real news. It was real discussion. It was pertinent. It was good faith. It was all the things that it should be. And that standard, the standard that I'm applying or expecting it's not a weird, unrealistic, right-wing liberal, blah, 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 blah. It's not one of those easy. It's just too easy to call somebody, you're just a blah, blah, blah. And that's the main method of attack that people use. It's fucking pathetic. It does not achieve any kind of like, it doesn't point anything out. It doesn't do anything like that, but you'll have scores of people, like think the ratio dilemma, where someone's like, you're a butthead. And then the person's like, you're a butthead. And then all their friends, depending on who's got more, will show who's more of a butthead. It's a very sophisticated process. But it's tacky, and I think people get that, so you don't see as much of that. I think another reason is there's just not as much traffic. I think another reason is that people grow up, and the newer generation doesn't want to perpetuate the... Anyways, talking about Israel, talking about the arguments for and against Zionism compared to... excuse me. Compared to rightful and legal occupation and residency and running... Society, politics, economics, they're the same thing, okay? It's a complicated conversation, but they are the same thing. We are political animals. We are social animals. We are economic creatures, as economics comes from the word oikos, which is household. And, it's an individual authority. The matter is a household deal. How much food do we need? What bedding do we need? What clothes do we need? The family is the best place to make those decisions. Now, considering we're using the family and we say the family structure is starting to disintegrate, or maybe it's not as significant, it's not as necessary of a condition to produce, personal happiness and a healthy human. Again, no universal health care, dumbasses, until we can establish what health is. What is health? Now that does not mean that, like no one cares about health. I mean that when we associate, the effects of health, we're basing that on a standard, right? So like, is mental health health? I think we say, yeah, it is. But look how wide and skewed that conversation is. That conversation goes like, another school shooting, and the Republicans are going to say hopes and prayers and, blame it on mental health, right? That's the meme. That's the reduction of it. And it's true, but that's not the whole story. And that's not even what matters. It's just an observation. The observation is then used as the cause, and it's not. It doesn't work that way. Is mental health health? I think most of us, if polled by Pew or someone that was moderately trustworthy, we'd find that people, yes, we agree that mental health is health. But because of the nature of modern capitalism and the tensions around insurance companies keeping their foothold in the economy versus the needs that we have with health, because again, I do support universal health care. I just don't, you're not ready. You're not ready. Not until at least the purveyors of what's the best way to put it? The elites of independent media, of independent left-leaning wannabe. You're all wannabes because left means new, and you guys use all these traditional things. Like you're either new left, like hippies, or you're like, no war, peace, and there's like naive bullshit. Or you're like, it's the climate now. Like, let's put soup on paintings and stuff. And I'm like, this stuff happens for a reason. But what I'm saying is that it's not going to bring about the change. It's like a cliche word. It's not going to do what you need it to do. In fact, it probably makes it even more remote that you're going to achieve that. Universal health care, you can't get into it until we establish what health is. And we don't need to establish it all the way around. We don't need to get all the states to ratify my personal definition of what health is. I just need to see that some people can think critically about what balance will change when we have universal health care in effect. You cannot just say, see, these other countries have it and we're the most civilized country, so why don't we, that argument holds some water, but it's leaky too. We need to have good arguments, and we need to have good understanding that is transportable, that can be shared easily and effectively, which is a tall enough order as is with anything. But Socrates and the trial. I think there's an understanding generally, if someone is familiar with this, that Socrates did not deserve to die, that his trial was unfair, that he was maligned by the powers that be. You can even make the Leninist argument about, capital being an imperial, never-ending, self-securing, democracy sabotaging. My cat is hilarious. You could make that argument. Socrates definitely was an influencer. The trial of Socrates. I'm, again, not an expert on it, but this was a large event. There were like 500 people in the jury. What were the charges? Corrupting minors. But one of the main charges was impiety, a lack of reverence. You don't have the proprietary decorum and concern for the things that we value. That's just what it is, a lack of reverence. You're like, fuck that, your church is fucking stupid. That's illegal. You can't say that. No, actually, it's not illegal. And in fact, you can disagree with me, and I could say you're an ugly, stupid asshole, right? I could say something that's terribly offensive, but it's not illegal, and it should be that way. Now, people use the free speech, they go free speech absolutist argument, and that is an excuse to continue to be irresponsible. Like Larry Flynn from Hustler, Tucker Carlson from Hell, no, not Hell. Sorry. I got to update some of my some of my associative attachments linguistically. Hell is number one. No such place. Okay, there's no heaven, hell. You don't do enough good deeds, you go to hell. Satan rules hell. That's total horseshit. It's not even in the Bible. It's not in the Torah. It's not in the New Testament. I don't know what kind of rabbinical things, like you talk about evil and hell and Lucifer, and there are elements in some of the scriptures in many religions, like in Islam, they've got Iblis, I think Iblis, and that story's really cool and interesting. But there's not much. There's more to that actually than there is to, in the biblical sense. It's like a third of the host of heaven fell and went with Lucifer. There's a little, okay, but it doesn't flesh out like hell as a consequence. That is an extrapolation made using Revelations and some other things. It is then built on and exploited to fearmonger, essentially. I don't know if they sold the fear, which is mongering, but they definitely anticipated its effects, and that continued to build. And you look at the Spanish Inquisition, where a lot of Jews died then. I mean, there was a Holocaust of a type then as well. History is well worth your time. Speaking of which, Socrates was put on trial, was held to determine the philosopher's guilt of 2 charges: aceibia, which is the impiety that I mentioned, impiety, a lack of reverence, a lack of social regard. You're the energy that you're bringing. Dude, vibe check, illegal. Against the pantheon of Athens. He was like, your gods are not my gods. Your gods don't make sense. They're stupid. You're stupid. And that was his thing. I don't model myself after Socrates. In fact, the case I'm trying to make here is that maybe the trial wasn't as unjust as history presents it to be. And I think I can make that case where you're at least gonna be in the middle. Welcome. Right? Everyone's going to call you Tim Pool or Dave Rubin now, but welcome. That's where we should be. Those fuckers, Dave Rubin and Tim Pool, are terrible. Dave Rubin, not so much as Tim Pool, but I'm not giving any charity to Dave Rubin. I'm just saying that I think Dave Rubin is better faith. He's stuck in a difficult situation. I think a lot of things are worth considering when it comes to Dave Rubin. Tim Pool, on the other hand, is a mess. Tim Pool is a mess. He's a mess. Tim Pool is an aggravated mess as well. He's someone that really needs to be corrected. And I would love to be the one to do it. And anyways. My name is Tim. It's been Tim longer. I'm in the middle because it's the right place to be. That's where humans are. That's where the majority of fair-minded, critical people end up, because we are supposed to consider things. You are not supposed to have loyalty in lockstep with an expectation of somebody else. Oh, man, this cat. I don't think anybody's here watching again. It looked like 2 people came in and then left, and that's cool. It's better than nothing. I'm glad people are curious. Hey, ow, damn it. Let me let this cat out. We'll get to Matt and Matt Binder and at Empanada here real soon. I'm gonna speed up because eventually I'm gonna want to do other stuff too. I would love to argue with someone. Yeah. And we're back. Thank you for being here. I'm going to assume that the numbers I'm seeing are wrong. I'm going to assume that there's 3 people watching, and you are the best 3 people in the world. Okay? Minus the people that you would say are the best people. You see how this works? You pick people that are the best, and then we've got everyone eventually. Hopefully, that's how that works. Because it's not about the individuals, it's about the things that we're representing and that we're associating as being good or bad or in the middle or whatever, because we can only substantiate this with one another's consensus. However, consensus is easily bought, it's easily manipulated. You can see it online. As I've said, I've studied this, and now I say that, and then there's like a meme where it's like, there are 6 types of people on Twitter. You've got the, yay, you're my best friend instantly. You've got the blah, 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 blah. Their characteristics. It's another I get it, right? I mean, like, people are going to go through this process, but my judgment is going to be as honest and direct as, it's like, I'm not just trying to say something. I'm not just trying to fill the void with words. I'm trying to take ideas that present themselves as a little, whether they're contentious or murky or recurring, like the intensity recurs, like universal healthcare or climate change. We know that's there, right? We're not going to talk about it all the time. Some people try to, because they're trying to match what they perceive as the urgency in that situation with their demonstration of, like commitment or something. But it's a misplaced effort. It doesn't bring the return. In fact, it pushes it further away, because people say, oh, you're not arguing for this from a practical or pragmatic or even realistic place. You're coming at this from a fervent and zealous, like, cultural place. So then the culture war response is to say, you know what? It's not that we want the country to burn. It's not that we want the world to burn. It's that your lens or if we make concessions, then the performative win that this other culture is going to have to brag over is going to embolden them, and they're just going to want more and more and more and more. See, there's reason in here. There's rationale. You can disagree with it, but what a good faith and critical person does, particularly when they're considering political implications, like you're calling people shit libs and stuff like this, fucking retarded. It's absolutely disastrously retarded how predictable what a fucking, this is my kid. Okay. There's just an endless amount of things to talk about. I can make personal judgments. I can make general judgments. I can open myself up to any line of argument or reasoning that would substantiate the urgency and consistency that you feel is worth demonstrating as a virtue signal, right? We need virtue signals. Like, I think that people should be safe. I don't think that we should have to worry about other people violently attacking us. I think apologia, or however you pronounce it, around self-defense, like the self-defense fetish that many Second Amendment and like, oh, good God. It's a fetish and it's a fantasy, and we see it all over the place. Okay, we see it all over the place, so you know what I'm talking about. I think fetishizing self-defense circumstances, like, well, what if someone broke into your house? Could you stab out their eyeballs with? It's like people want to imagine the most like indulgent. You know what I'm talking about. And there are video games and movies and things that cater to that, and that's fine. It's better than fine, actually. It's when people take that intensity and they think, I'm going to use this model on this real world problem, right? Because that's the problem. The normies are the problem. The stagnation and the complacency and the complicity, that's the problem. But addressing why and how is what we need, not who and where. Like, look at them, the libs, the normies or whatever. The normies are the problem, but we want normies to change. We want normies to get gnosis. We want them to look and say, huh, I just didn't, no one had ever put it that way, which I've seen, and you've seen this too if you watch the Majority Report and some rare other instances of media. People will change their mind. It might not happen all at once. It might be a very different process for everyone. It happens rarely, but it happens. And those are the golden moments when someone says, I used to be of this persuasion, but now I'm not. Now, then you take that and you say, oh, we're doing such a good job because we hear from people that say this all the time. They say it. Yeah, they say it. But when it happens, that's when we need to say, good job. Cheers. Now, why? What was the information? Because hopefully it's something critical. It's something critical, or that you were critical of or used as a tool to criticize something that would otherwise just be taken for granted. You saw what was there the whole time and now you can't unsee it. That's what we're looking for. Not, oh, I didn't know that corporate lobbyists spend $22 billion every month on celery for their Bloody Marys. That's so disgusting, and blah, 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 blah. That may or may not be true, but that's not the moment we're looking for. And that's what this self-congratulatory culture policing. They're like, Tucker Carlson's so bad, he does cultural refereeing. And they'd say, well, we're not against immigration and we're not xenophobic and we're not bigoted. Yeah, but you're just as limited mentally, and you're just as culturally allegiant to some bullshit that doesn't represent the majority of people. And when it comes to health and function in a society, to have a good economy, not in a liberal sense, although, it's bananas that the word liberal is something like to demonize, when the right was, the liberal was the worst possible thing you could be, not long ago. Now, if you're young, if you're like 18, 19, and I say like it was like 8 years ago, you'd be like, that's half your life. I'm not trying to take that away from you. But in the grand scheme of things, that's only a few presidential terms. And that's pretty quickly for that change to happen. The word liberal is the opposite of conservative. And people don't care in mass. They don't care about the political science. They care about the economy. As Clinton said, it's the economy, stupid. Because that's the thing that they have to maintain, like oikos, economy, the household. You have to keep track of that stuff. You have to say, we eat how much money's worth of food this month. And when that changes, or, like you're trying to have more kids and have more families and, have a better, bigger, stronger families, whether that's the right or wrong pursuit, you're managing those outcomes and you're trying to save money and do things right. So when your money's fucked with, then, you're going to notice. And it's not because you're shallow or you're a liberal, or it could be, it might not be, but that's not what the focus should be on. The culture war bullshit needs to stop. All right, zooming through this, Socrates was put on trial basically for being irreverent. But what we're missing here is that prior to this trial, there were 2 uprisings in Greece where thousands of people were put to death because they were liberals. Same thing. It was an in-group, out-group, star-belly sneech scenario. Yes, the right wing has used star-belly sneeches as memes and whatnot, but that doesn't mean that the metaphor, the comparison isn't sound. We need metaphors and we need things like that. This is going to figure into both yesterday's discussion and the Socrates thing. There is the reality, and this, from what I understand, is what Socrates was concerned with. He would walk around telling people, you're all fuzzy thinkers and you're fucked because you don't see. You don't even try to. You don't look. That's why you don't see. It's not like you have some magic powers. That's more Plato's thing. And I'm more of a Platonic guy than Socratian. But I do enjoy Socrates' unceasing criticisms put in the form of a question. I'm just asking questions, But now, if someone's just asking questions, you're right wing, Now, it's one thing to say, oh, you're just asking questions, but what you're really doing is begging the question. You're introducing charged language that puts certain thoughts into people's minds. That's what begging the question is. It's not a question that requires an answer with, that's how it's used. But begging the question is like pro-life. When you say pro-life or pro-choice, like who doesn't like life and who doesn't like choice, right? So it's like, that's not really the best description for what these people are. And it's not accurate to say that they're two parts of the whole and they're opposite. That's the framing is a problem, but the charged language is what begging the question is. And that's the game we play. So it's the star-bellied sneetch thing. The metaphor, the analog, however you want to put it, is sound. Socrates would challenge people and say, look, you're not really being critical. You're not really looking at this like it is, and therefore your lives lack meaning. You're worried about the material. You're worried about the superficial. You're worried about how people see you. You're worried about how people think of you. Things like that, right? Like this is the original, like it's very, very similar, okay, simultaneously to what would later become Judaism in monotheism was developing. You've got Gnosticism and Gnosis, the pursuit of wisdom, divine wisdom, knowledge of God and greater things, insight to the divine, or at least, the as close to eternal, whatever, the sublime. That's Gnosis, Gnosticism. It predates Christianity, but it also, anyways, you've got your Gnosticism and you've got your monotheism developing pretty simultaneously. And that's another discussion that's really interesting because it then, after Alexander the Great comes and unifies you've got both cultures. This is the Hellenic era. And then we've got the humanism versus the particularities of Jewish culture. The laws and rules and the morality, like you don't go fucking around on your wife. Like there's certain things that are just, you don't break this rule. Whereas on the other side, it's like humans are humans. So why is this rule there when it's limiting what human expression is naturally designed, or at least prone to go toward? It's a good debate. Right? It's unresolved. If it was ever resolved for anyone, we forgot what the resolution was. And this is the story. In history, the problems that we face now, the categories that we place on people, the explanations that we give to things and how they differ, and how we coalesce around the different poles to then oppose one another, has happened over and over and over again. And different interests and incentives that serve those motivations seek to hide themselves. Power and extensions of power, it seeks to hide itself. So Socrates pushes on all that, the material, the worldly, the things that don't matter. They don't matter is the assertion. What matters is honesty, awareness, the now, reality, the ideal, whatever. Let's talk about it and ask, well, why? Until you find the most solid and sturdy point of stasis universally for everyone, which is what pragmatism is. C.S. Peirce and those guys. Yeah, it's the rule of large numbers. If you do it enough, you're going to find consistent answers, but you might have to do it twice as much to find a consistency in that consistency. You get as much as you possibly can, which we can with computers now. Side note, 1 zettabyte of data from the very first human thought to the year 2000. All right, Y2K. That's 1 zettabyte worth of information. All this Greek stuff, all the Jewish stuff, all the stuff that I'm talking about, and everything that anybody talked about from the first moment to then is 1 zettabyte worth of information. Since that point in 2020, we have produced a zettabyte of information every month thereafter. So it took all of humanity's span from beginning to 2020 to produce 1 zettabyte. Now we do that every month. We produce. So, I mean, like you could say stuff is slowing down and the economy's breaking and all this, but it's not. It's how we look at things and how we expect and how we practice and process and limit and ostracize and all these things. You're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. If you want the effect to change, like the definition of insanity cliche that everyone leans on, that one, right? You've heard that one. I don't need to say it. And I wouldn't anyways, because it's not really like Einstein's thing. But it's attributed to Einstein, and people like that because they like to see other people fail by doing the same thing over and over again. So they can say, definition of insanity. Oops. That point of reference is useful, however, though, because now we can argue about that. And we say, is it true? Is it not? Where does it apply? When is it good faith? When is it, when is it attack? And we should have that awareness, especially if we're going to go into the combat around rhetoric. When we make assertions and assumptions about people as, they're crazy, dismissed. That's lazy. It's not like a conservative saying, you're lazy. You need to be disciplined and you need to get a job and you need to live in your car and do like all these economic heroes that we. No. The arguments that I think the reason I went down this particular. And I don't know what thoughts I'm leaving unfinished from prior to this, but the reason I went down this path is because there is nothing new under the sun. The dilemmas and dynamics that bring these problems, social, economic, what was the other one? Political problems, to our attention, the causes remain the same. They are the dilemmas and the recurring disparities in human intentions, agendas, power differentials. It works the way it works. So Socrates was apparently friends or favored a politician, Aristophanes, I think his name was. And then there was, anyways, in that one, that's where over 1500, they wanted to implement an oligarchy because Socrates was like, you people are stupid. You're like sheep. He's right. But now you say that and people are like, oh, it's like right-wing rhetoric calling people sheeple. Well, you are. Maybe if you stopped being that way, the criticism wouldn't be dealt by people who are frustrated when we just try to find some like meaningful, worthwhile interaction. And I've been terminally online, so I'm up on who the fuck everyone is and where they're coming from and who cares about this person or not. And one of the most exciting things that's happened is that Matt Binder talked to Bad Empanada last night. I think it was yesterday. That's really, really exciting. And I've overlooked Binder. I've kind of been like, because he seems like he's just a tag-along Sally kind of guy with the whole post-Brooks. We all we think about is Bernie Sanders and universal health care, and we'll kill everyone that's not DSA. We live in the city. We think the city. Our brains are the city. I love living in the city. Look it up. Junk is king and the air smells shitty. I love living in the city. Old man dying of a heart attack in the street. He died while we just looked at him. Ain't it cute? I don't care about you. Fuck you! Fear is such a good band. They didn't copyright block me. Oh, also, Queens of Stone Age came out with a new one yesterday. In fact, that was on the list to do the review but I've already been at this for like hours and I haven't even gotten through the Socrates trial. If people were here, if there was action, I would shift my ways super quick. Super duper quick. I would. This is about what we need, what we want, and what we can do, the potential. What do you need? You got people to go into the battle around rhetoric that can stay focused on one idea and can move it in a linear fashion from one point to another. Here. Someone that has had the experience and the trauma and the pain that comes with ostracization as well as appreciation. Here. Someone that is central to areas of populace and I don't know what you call it. Like everything's falling apart, but cities that have like substantial cultures and nexuses of activity. Baltimore, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., New York City, they're all right here. So someone who has access to high population areas of culture here. Someone who has experience working in government here. Someone who has an understanding of history in both Western and Eastern culture as if there's a difference here. Someone who has an understanding of all of the micro caveat arguments that the culture war favors here. Someone who understands what it's like to have a dad that listens to Rush Limbaugh and still doesn't get that it's wrong here, etc., etc., etc. I am that in spades. I am here for that. I also understand religion, and I can make the argument for why you're wrong using religion as an atheist. I'm not an atheist. I do believe in God. What does that mean? Instantly, you're going to be like, that's a Christian God, or it's this God, or is this God. You're going to make the association with the religion that you came up in, which is fucked up. It's so fucking stupid. That false binary, that false choice. Okay, there we go. Now we got a little bit of chat going on there. I hate everyone that keeps me in the shadows. My rage and fury only grow. Your fault. Hopefully this will change soon, though. Again, and hopefully your fault. See what I did there? Maybe be like, you're incoherent, blah, 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 blah. Let me, I don't want to go back to Twitter. Fuck that. Okay, zooming through this for my own sake, since everyone else is playing along with the censor, the smart guy game. He's not a team player. Fuck your team. Your team is dragging the majority of people down into a pit that we will not be able to recover from. Human nature is not versatile enough to work its way through this. We should be able to govern our own selves, but when manipulation and coercion are as they are, then what we find is what we find. You must change the inputs to change the outputs. And you're talking about changing the inputs by fetishizing like some union fantasy that is based off of like racist farmers from the 1870s. The populist movement is right. And then FDR with the New Deal. Good, great. Marianne Williamson. Why would Majority Report put up a picture of her looking kind of haggard and also be like, we don't really get politicians on here. Sam doesn't want to do that. And Matt Leck said out loud, well, she's just like a downgrade from Bernie Sanders. Boom. You fetishize shit. You don't care about policy prescriptions. You don't care about people. You don't care about the effects that come from them. You care about a performative victory that you can say, look what we got. Look what we got. We won one. We deserve this. Who the fuck is we, Matt? Not Bender. Bender, I have a good feeling about this bad Empanada exchange, and that's going to be tough. All right, like that's going to be a tough one because you guys, from what I understand, we're dealing with Nazis and Israel and colonialism, and it may test my knowledge, but we're going to get into that nonetheless. And I'm super like, I don't know, pleased, impressed, proud of Matt Bender for doing that. I've got a lot of thoughts on that. But Matt Leck, whom I am talking to now, and Ben Burgess, and even Sam Cedar, or his minions that I sense are kind of like pulling away, but at the same time have like Raygun, personalities on Twitter. People's thought processes and writing patterns are they're easy to, not easy, they're identifiable, right? So if someone uses a a pen name, or what would you call it, a pseudonym, and I'm interacting with you. Anyways, it's just sad. It's sad and it's fucked up that the cult is so again, I got 17 subscribers. Like, it's weird. It's weird. It's weird. Twitter is the same thing. It's weird. Anyways, Socrates, he fucked people's kids and he told them, hey, you don't want to work for your dad's business. Come fuck me all day. And meanwhile, he's married. I know that's how things were, but that's another problem. Also, Socrates was involved with people who overthrew the democratic system in favor of the oligarchy, and they murdered and exiled all kinds of people. And Socrates, at the very least, did nothing on purpose, which I have different feelings on. Is that a crime? Is it not? I'm just saying that when you have a son, that an old, like, the corruption of youth was the other charge. Okay. Socrates was charged with impiety, lack of reverence. Fuck that. I'm with him on that. And the corruption of youth. The corruption of youth was twofold. The way we tell the story now is that politically, philosophically, he was influential and he was a troublemaker in a good way. But the other side of that is he had sex with people's boys, right? I don't think they were like young boys. Like, it was like consenting kind of thing. But that culture, think about it. If you're a parent and then the kid not only has done this weird stuff with this weird guy, he's not listening to you anymore at all. He's not going to hear a word of it. And it's the guy that stood by, Alcibiades, that was the other name. Alcibiades and Aristophanes, or is that the playwright? These names are, Aristophanes was the playwright. Okay, he was the playwright. There are experts in this field if you're interested, but I'm just saying the trial is not necessarily as it seemed. Socrates was guilty of things, but as it applies to my case, you can see the groupthink and you can see why democracy is a bad thing, because if the powers that be want you to be against someone, you are, and you swear your reasoning is your own. It is not. If it's not, come out and prove it. Prove it to someone that has the capacity to track what you're saying. Destiny, it would be super easy, dude. You're like, oh, you're crazy, or who are you? You don't have followers. Vaush, I don't know his deal. I thought we were cool. He's yet to write me back or say or do anything. All I did was like, hey, what do you think about this no engagement? Isn't that a little weird? Nothing. I don't know the games, these culty, clicky fucking, they're all in with each other. And if that's supposed to be about politics, if it's supposed to be about changing society, if it's supposed to be about creating and propagating opportunities for people to not only survive, which is a problem right now, more so all the time, no less the insecurity from how will I survive later, but also thrive, to borrow a phrase from the Majority Report. I don't care about criticizing right-wing people. They do a good enough job of that on their own. But what happens is people like Matt Leck and these post-Leninists clicked out, fucking afraid of everything that's not absolutely conforming to their emotional expectations, not just situationally. If it doesn't conform completely, then they not only ignore it, which is the opposite of what they should do. They should not necessarily confront it. I'm not saying someone should be mutually confrontational, but you should address the inconsistencies to dispatch them. But people aren't even interested at all in like a deviation from the dysfunctional norm, which is weird. It's weird. It's weird. It's too weird to just be a natural affect of this game. It's fucked up. And you guys are the ones perpetuating it, because I'm not going to the right-wing people. You would have to go so hard. If you were going to go in that direction, people labor under the assumption that if you just go moderately to the right, that it's like golden roads all the way. No, there's competition there too. And the competition is, how much do you really believe it? How much do you really mean it? And the left's playing the same version of that, but they're not responding to conviction. They're responding to performative aesthetics and optics. And they have to use other pundits to make their point. They can't do it just on its own. You just reduce it down to the dialectic or whatever. You don't have to use philosophical terms. Like Sam Harris, fucking brilliant genius, but Michael Brooks said he was a bad guy. So everyone's like, he's a bad guy. That's how that story went. It's that simple. It's that simple. I had two people be like, well, I don't know how long you were around, but maybe you don't know. Maybe you don't know. He was like, kind of like bad. I know. I've read. I've looked. I've watched for hours and 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 hours. The Eli Klein. Ethan Klein's the H3. Eli Klein, Eli something. Someone from Vox interview with Sam Harris is fucking so frustrating. That guy's the problem. That's the problem. He's like a grown-up, snottier, teenier, dicked version of Matt Leck. They're so far up their own ass about what normal behavior is supposed to be. And the problem that creates inconsistency is labor-based. It's wrong on so many levels. And they lock it up. They lock it up. Keep it. And anyone that defies that, okay, I found this guy Tick History. He's so cool. He's so smart. He's wrong about a lot of stuff. He's missing a lot of stuff, but we only have so much time. And without coalescence with other people that are Gnostically minded, okay, you don't have to be a Gnostic. I don't know what that would be anyways. But people who are Gnostically minded, looking for truth, okay, which is like 1 in 1,000. That's how it works out. There's a Gnostic belief. It's more of a Valentinian belief, but it should be mentioned that they believe that some people are just material. Some people are just made out of the dirt from which we come, and they will return to the dirt because they seek no divine knowledge. They do not look for other answers. They do not care about anything except their cell phone or genes or imitating the approval that others get. That the Lacanian, what a mess. What a mess out here on the internet. I think I've done a pretty good job of staying sane, all things considered. Like the base is to come back. The base, like you have to have a base or a touchstone to come back to. That the emotional intensity is justified. The reasoning and the effects are not. And you can't affect those unless people are willing to participate, and they're not willing to participate. The only thing that they're willing to participate in are the things that they've already established are familiar. And those familiarities are based off of Leninism. It's not Marx. Everyone's saying Marx. Marx is a philosopher. He wants you to think of him as an economist. But the same people that call me incoherent call Marx brilliant. Whoa. Wow. Someone needs to put themselves into a position to say, I'm a moderator. I'm a mediator. I just want to steel man. Okay, you use this term because it's something that has legs. You can describe it in better words, but steel man at least gives us a package to transport. Be a moderator. Look at people's positions. And if you're having trouble understanding, say, what's your position? What's your position on this? And if they say, it's a little complicated. Then you say, okay, that's fine. They say it's complicated. But then when someone says, they're just right wing, and say, I don't know, they say it's complicated. Represent people's positions honestly. This will move the discourse out of the funk into the air. Blow the stink off you. Let the sun wash over you. Please. I would probably want to prosecute Socrates for these crimes too, if I were alive back then. And I didn't know that until yesterday. So, here's to changing your mind on things. What's up next? Let's skip to. Let's just get to the main attraction here, shall we? How long is it? 4 hours. Okay. Woo. Okay. All right. I need headphones. Wait, let me get this screen lined up here. Do like Mr. Voshy Vosh here too and put my picture down there like that. All right, here we go.
All right, here we go. I'm live on my channel. I know Bad Empanada is live on his channel. Hey, are you there?
Yes, indeed.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, it's nice to talk with you. I've heard some about you over the years, and it's interesting to finally get a chance to talk. Weird, I guess, series of events that brought us here, but here we are.
Yeah, it's okay. I have no idea who you are.
That's
Um,
fine.
I'm just interested in using you as a proxy to make a video to talk about a topic so that I don't have.
Okay, all right. I hear that. I hear that. And I understand how people are going to respond to that too. They'll be like, he's so snotty. He's so, yeah, he is. I think it's like autism. He's a high functioning Asperger's guy. And I think I can see it on his face right now. Bender's like, I'm being charitable, I'm being kind, I'm being, congenial, and all I'm getting is this. This is another frustration for me. I talk like I talk, but if someone were to respond to me personally, I think they'd find other people that have gotten through that, which a couple have, that I am a fun-loving, easygoing, attentive man. Okay, I'm not a boy, all right? Like in that Arrested Development thing, like, fucking fuck you, man. Like, if you know what you're about and you know what feels good and stuff like that. Now, people use that ethos the wrong way. You get these, like, I'll tell you who the problem is. Okay, I say normies, but you can tell them by this behavior, by this rationale. The worst thing you can be is unemployed. People that think you must suffer as much as me and also look like it doesn't bother you at the same time. You must play that game as a man, especially. If you're a woman and you're unemployed, especially not married, it's like, when are you going to get married? You know what I mean? This is the problem. There's a male-female difference, right? It's not all equal. Okay, it can be in some regards. There's a spectrum. I'm not discounting gender theory or transsexual motivations and goals and thought processes. I'm not getting into any of that, and I'm also not. I'm supportive of that because I think pursuit of self is the ultimate goal. That's how you achieve gnosis. Pursuit of self is consideration of the nature of God. Our minds, our agency, our awareness, our ability to differentiate between past, present, and future, to be creative and imaginative and say, you know what, I'm going to induce uncertainty on purpose to then try to resolve the uncertainty with something like artistic, like I'm going to take things that are undefined and make new definitions. That means you have to purposely embrace uncertainty. That's what a creative person does. And it hurts, but then it feels good. Risk reward. And a lot of people are like, I must be steady all the time. Things must be the way I can explain them all the time. And I'll have a little bit of discomfort and then I'll explain that, which is a form of being artistic and creative. It might be accidental. It might just be the natural offerings of life, right? But, stepping out of your comfort zone and then returning to your comfort zone is the process, not maintaining the same comfort zone. That is basic and it's fucking stupid. There's no good reason to be charitable to that outlook. Just like the people who say, if you're a man and you're not working a job, not just a job, I worked 82 hours yesterday. What'd you work? You worked 12? It's like this, I broke my leg. Well, I cut my head off, and I had the flu, cut my head off, and got possessed by 17 unhelpful demons, and I still showed up to work. Those are the worst type of people. That's the problem. It's this, you must suffer too. That's the natural price of life. Now, on the other side, we have people that say, all that's bullshit. But they're wrong. It's not all bullshit. Who's going to do the stuff that needs to get done? And then the argument, the charitable and fallacious argument is that, well, who cleans the toilets at your house? It gets done out of love. Guess what? My toilets don't get cleaned. I'm just kidding. They do. But You can't just make the assumption that it'll work out because it does in some cases. You need to have a motivation and incentive structure in place. I mean, like, it's going to be in place because it produces the results and effects that it produces. But you need to be able to establish why it produces, why the homeostasis. Like I said earlier, you inject a dye into a drink, and then like internal imaging will trace where the fluid or blood or whatever goes, because the dye allows it to track and trace it. You want to observe. You want to be able to observe the effects of a properly functioning homeostatic machine, right? Or whatever, assembly of disparate parts that make one, right? You want to understand like the car drives because you've got combustion. You want to understand the cycle of processes that create the one constant thing. But constancy is, and then you step outside of constancy to make the constant better. If you just seek to maintain the constant, you are the problem, because the constant is way down here and way up here for a lesser group. And it's like here, you're like, that's not real. The stuff that's there, especially stuff down there. You've got people on the other side, like people that Matt would probably be, because he's in that leftist mafia bullshit with Illuminati. And I like David Dole. I like him. And I like Lance, but they need to reach out. They need to have a conversation with me. They at least need to recognize that a new player is in town, instead of being like, oh, that crazy guy? Because fuck you. If that's the way we're going to go that way. But it's your choice. And then you have other people who are super fucked up in the head and be like, oh, that's like blaming the victim. No, this is our plight. When you discount someone that is willing to participate and put real work into this, not performative machismo work, but actually be a fucking man about it and be here and be present and be constant and be salient and be invested and committed and convicted to all the things that we can establish together are worth being convicted in, while also helping one another to understand what makes up the cause that produces, again, something we need to consider and observe together, the effect. If you need me to use less words, if you need me to help like with pictures, if you think if I should slow down maybe, perhaps get a script, these are all great suggestions. Thank you for providing them. Not! Sorry, I'm a Wayne's World kid. The dorky should not negate the cool. And the snotty should not even come into this picture, because if snottiness is the ethos, then we are extra fucked, which we are, because snottiness is the ethos, and that's what the right sees, and that's what fuels them. Look at all the polls. Just talk to them. They'll tell you. They don't vote Republican. They don't vote the most conservative, anti-trans, anti-everything that is a demonstration of liberty. An opportunity to pursue happiness, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. They twist that and say life. That means this clump of cells in a woman's, it doesn't even have to be in the uterus. It could be the fallopian tube, and it could be like a death sentence for the woman. They're like, no, it's life, and it's constitutional. They twist it. It's a monkey's paw, Twilight Zone version of it. And the left does the same thing by saying, we don't have to work. That's just a lie perpetrated by capital because blah, 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 blah. And then the right will interview Marianne Williamson, who we don't deserve, that you guys think is a lesser version of Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is okay, but he's old and he's fucking not the right guy for the job. He's the right guy to advise the right people for the job. He's in the right job. As a senator, as an independent senator from Vermont, he is in the right position. He would not make a good commander-in-chief. Do we need someone that is better? Yes. Marianne Williamson is that. She understands the Bernie philosophy and economic structuring, as well as the personal and social and political. All right? She understands it. But because she doesn't toe that fucking Workers Unite bullshit that Matt Leck is on about, and the leftist mafia, Illuminati swears socialism is just this thing that stupid people don't get. You just don't get. It's what we need. No, motherfucker, you don't even know what it is. You say it's not what the right says it is. Okay, at least we're having the conversation now, but keep going. No less, let's start it. So yeah, Lance's seems cool. David seems smart. He said hi to me in a chat. It was when I was Super Tim. He's like, hi, Super Tim. That's something. He gets a pass. He treated me like a real person for a second. Anybody that has treated me like a real person for a second will have true friendship from me if they want it. If they want it. I'm not saying like, let's say I would love to have a conversation with Destiny because I think he is closer to Gnosis than a lot of other people are. But Bad Empanada, back to this. Geez, we got 4 more hours of this to go. So maybe I should put it on a higher speed. Maybe, huh? Bad Empanada, it was very rude there. It was very rude, okay? But I'm going to look past the rude. I get it why that would rub people the wrong way. When you're like, I'm reducing you down to something I'm just going to use, right? So like, I resent Matt Binder for being complicit in the leftist mafia bullshit. And Lance is, I guess, doubling down on protecting, because it's not defending, it's protecting this Illuminati person who really, like Keffels was perpetrating a lot of melodrama and bullshit. And I don't know the details. I don't know the nature of the substance, but when that whole, like, the cops came in and she said they were like putting guns in her face and they had to move and Kiwi Farms and blah, 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 blah. She was milking that, right? Which is the name of the game. She's this learned behavior. It doesn't excuse it, but it explains it. She's in Ireland and someone else found her, but it kind of suggested that maybe she pulled that stunt on her own to keep the publicity going. And she was taking money in for legal fees, but the explanation for what the fees were for kept changing. So then, I'm like, Destiny and Keffels deserve each other. That's all. They love this shit. They love the heat and smoke. They don't love the grease and the juice. They love the heat and the smoke. Grease and the juice is an iDubbbz thing. Maybe it's something else, but I'm going to say it's him. That guy is awesome. I don't know if he's got the gnosis, but I think he's got something as powerful as that. And it makes me curious. What is that? Is it the grease and the juice? It's good, whatever it is. And it's only going to get better. That's the point. Instead of being like, do you know what they said? And be like, do you know what they can say? I would love to ask them this question. I would love to see, instead of like Tim Pool holding Lance to a imaginary fire based off like phony grievance, I would like to see a real conversation with Lance, with someone that challenges his positions. Here, hi, not a Nazi, not a transphobe. I'm not any of the things that will get you, imaginarily canceled in your world, which would actually be like meme worthy if you did talk to someone like that. This whole like, you're platforming, blah, blah, blah. You're platforming Illuminati, who is an irresponsible journalist wannabe that attributes every single proprietary extension of her work as her original idea, when it's so obviously not. And Binder is in that cult, and Lance is protecting. And when it's like, just, dude, you guys are supposed to be there to help us exercise better judgment over complex and moving things. I'm going to look at Matt and pretend he's talking to me. He's looking at me like, yeah, I've heard it. You're talking a lot. I'll stop talking if you talk to me. Huh, how about that? Anyways, let's up the speed on this, and definitely admit that. Oh wow, yeah, that was a bit rough there. Bad Empanada. That was rough.
I have to make it on my main channel.
That's cool. I will say it's a bit weird you're not on your main channel, because you had promoted.
I don't stream on my main channel.
Yeah, I get it, but you had told me that you have 10 times the viewers that I have.
He's
But
very
I get like 1,000 views per video.
Well, because they're just live streams. And no, I don't. I get like, you can check it out right now. It's like 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 views.
You stream on like majority reporters.
No. This is good. Okay, Bad Empanada made a really good video. Maybe I'll cut this up and put the link in there. This is one of the reasons I have respect for him. And this was an extension of, because I've had my eye on him since I started this internet research, right? I came into the DGG world and tried to perpetrate some troublemaking and friend making, and I succeeded and failed in equal measures. But I brought up Bad Empanada, no answer. He's in that space between spaces, but you can see he does get to play online. He supports himself. He also has Patreon subscribers. I think comparing himself to Binder is a mistake, because Binder is influential. Elon Musk fucking commented on him. Like, he is on the Majority Report. There is, and that's why the criticism is pertinent, because their influence is real. And if you think about that too much, it will paralyze, certainly affect what you have to offer originally. So I understand you don't want to let feedback of a general nature constantly push you. You have to have a balance. I'd imagine that there'd be wisdom that all of these people, because they've been doing it for a while, could share. But Bad Empanada is relegated to the not leftist, but he's like, you're not a real leftist, and there's the purity test thing going on. But at least Bad Empanada can trace what he's missing though. Okay, the video. Sorry. The video that he put out that's good. It's like, here's how you do it. You do a long stream, okay? And then you cut the bits up, right? Instead of having to make video after video. And he does it. He's like, I put time, money, research into making a quality video that's going to break down this information, show you what people make per capita, real versus adjusted for inflation and blah, 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 blah. Like, here's all this information presented in a clear and salient way. It's accessible and open to you for free. I'm just expecting that there's a return of exposure, based on the quality of the substance. But there's not. What does pay is what Destiny and Vaush and Hassan do. They've got the model. That's the model. It's like televangelism, but actually it could be like actual church too. It could be parasocial, but it could be social in a way that allows us to synthesize and to find catharsis collectively as power to the person and power to the people. You need power to the person if you expect to have power to the people. And if you expect to have power to the people, you need to, it's like it goes, I don't know if I said that right, but it goes both ways. You need both. The synthesis is a little more difficult to just sum up, but it's like, I said it was like televangelism at first, and I think I came on a little too strong about that because there's a lot of utility. I just didn't see it at the time because it was like Destiny and Keffels, and Destiny called me a schizo without knowing me. And, it's like it's lonely out here to find people that are able to articulate complex things in a linear fashion and continue to refer back to the base that they started from to say, well, what have we learned? Why does it matter? Things like that. How does it connect to the larger conversation? How does this affect people in general? Why does this happen? Why do we see these effects? What is the cause to that effect? And do we have access to it? Things like that. It's not very often that you find people that work in those, traffic in that function, right? So, it's not like, anyways, he made a video saying this is how you do it. You stream, it's easy. There's zero production value. And then you cut it up and you make videos out of that. And that way you can put the least amount of work with the most amount of return. And he also got into sensationalism a little bit, spectacle, but he's right. People miss what's right, what has value. If I was smart, that's what I do, but I'm not smart. I'm just trying to establish some kind of like base that we can build on. Here's me. I know a lot of shit. You've had a lot of experience. We all see things being fucked. Let's clean it up and have one central location. Destiny tried to do that, but failed. All he did was get a latchkey kid program for all the mixed kids that come from single parent households. He's the one that's a catch-all for them. And I'm glad he's there for that, but that's a big responsibility running an adolescent daycare like that. Prove me wrong, DGG. Vaush is similar, but his kids are a little older. They're like the kids that didn't go to college, but really should have because they have an interest, an inclination, a spark, a propensity toward gnosis, true knowledge. You're willing to, say, fuck convention. Convention is the problem, The convention's not the way we get this done. They are radical, right? It's like, and a little bit older. So there are differences. Hassan is another case. It doesn't really matter because his influence is for the normie version of socialists, which is like, oh, we're just all hanging out. We're just cool. We're like buddies and it's all good. And if you're not normal and, oh, that's dope. Or what's the dripped out and blah, 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 what the fuck ever. It really doesn't matter. But because other people pretend it matters, it's funny to laugh at. And it's just like, the reasoning I hear is, I don't really care, just keep it on in the background. Destiny can do a lot more than that. And he knows it. And he does. And I see him like addressing and trying to strategize his way. But he called me a schizo and he never apologized. He also listens to that fucking stupid woman, Shari or whatever, who's just the most troublemaking, manipulative, like she she is the type of person that in history, you could see where wars started because of her, because she's like, so like, oh, I'm loyal, or she is, and she likes attention from men and wants to be the one that gets the most attention and all this stuff. But she's also shallow with a moderate propensity towards intellectualism. And if she gave up all the bullshit, she could go through that. And that's what I saw in her at first. But then I saw her true colors because I sent her, she called me a schizo too, which is like, you guys are really some groupthink motherfuckers. What's so bad about being a schizo? If I were, which I'm not, the complaint is that I write too much or I say too much. It's not schizo. It's just like, I don't have the time or energy to actually pay attention. So crass generalization. We'll all confirm it by reacting the same way. We're fucked. We're really fucked, guys. The best that we have is like Destiny of Vosh and Sam Cedar. Holy fuck. There's a couple young black girls that I think could take over for, not kidology. Nope. She's in that President Sunday deal where they're like, we're not normies. We're insightful. And no, you're not. You ain't never done drugs. You ain't never had pain. You don't have kids. You don't know shit. You're smart, but you don't know shit. And you want to leverage that against other people that aren't conventional. Part of the problem. More insulation against the actual, to hit the pay dirt where we can actually affect change. It's just more insulation and buffer that keeps us from it. And it also, it's so bad because it keeps up the appearance of actually being like insightful and clever. Change that. Get in touch with me, kidology. There's a couple other gals. I don't want to mention their names, but I've been watching. They're really, 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 really impressive. One I think is a queer girl from Georgia, and she's fucking badass. It's like a French, anyways, there are people out there that I would love to see that shift, but it'll never happen because the predominant audience that we're working with is the male. They're not incels though. That's part of it, but anyways, it is a fucked up scene. It's like describing, kingdom, phylum, genus, species, order, it's like going through all of that. Right. And Bad Empanada had it down for what is the format, or is the least amount of effort with the most amount of payoff. And that's to stream, talk about shit like politics and whatever, cut it up and release the videos with trendy, like we're Nazi socialists, stuff like that. Yeah. All right. Anyways, let's try to dig into this. I wanted to say that he's right. And it's a shame that they're off to the start where they're like niggling over this. I think Binder wants to say, look, dude, you're being rude. Okay. But he's doing it in that city brains. He wouldn't talk like this if he wasn't in the bubble, right? If he's in the bubble, he'd be like, get the fuck over yourself, whatever, like you move on, but address it. Instead, it's this passive aggressive tension that plays out where you get back into the cult and be like, yeah, we knew he was bad. Instead of addressing the cause that produces that effect. Or instead of dismissing the person entirely, you dismiss the negative elements that they bring and you reward the positive elements. And I guarantee by the end of that conversation, you're going to have a different result. If people don't understand autism, and they're judging political belief. Okay, autistic people tend to be more careful when it comes to facts and how they connect. In fact, I don't know. They insist on it, okay? Insist on it. I say we because we're people and I understand as many types and situations that people are in as I can. I try to collect true empathy for people's situations. That does not mean sensitivity and like, oh, I don't want to cause any harm or pain because people should be versatile. I think between men and women, maybe the masculine approach that I'm espousing right now is not right. I don't think it works for women, gals, ladies, people of a more feminine nature. I think they need the sensitivity, but you don't get the sensitivity unless you provide something too. And this is where a different argument, I say we, but therein lie many different differences that we should consider if we're going to have an effective conversation about it. Bad Empanada knows what he's talking about. He really does. But his attitude and his framing and the opposition that he's expecting and therefore demonstrating an opposition too proactively is destructive to what could be. Does that make sense?
Something?
No, I don't. I stream on my own channel. I got like 29,000 subscribers, which obviously is much less than your main channel. But
Okay.
you're
Well, I'm glad we've gotten the important details out of the way.
right. Well, you didn't know. You also didn't want to go on video, which was weird.
I'm on video on my channel. I just don't want to set it up.
All right. Also, I just want to do a screen share really quick. I mean, do you usually show your the people that give you the time of day such wonderful respect as to not even put their name in the title or call them Discount Sam Cedar? Very weird.
Yeah.
Very weird.
Yeah. You don't matter, dude. I'm sorry. Your name doesn't bring in viewers.
All right, that's fine. But
you
usually
can just derogatory name for me if you want.
Your whole thing
really
about not
does,
going live
though.
on video was you don't care about the whole YouTube debate viewer thing, and then you're telling me that you put
No, I don't go live
Discount
on
Sam
video.
Cedar. You put Discount
My
Sam
stream
Cedar.
is
Good call out, Bender. Good, because that is an inconsistency on his part. And I didn't know that there was that bad faith attack from the beginning. To say discount Sam Cedar, I think that's smart for the views. But again, he's playing off the model that works, that has returned the result. Now you're talking to a real human. And I think for autistic people, it's hard to do that. You don't see the real human until you understand what position they're representing, and you're attacking it. Oh shit! I'm sorry. You're attacking it as a whole, as a mass, in an attempt to break it down. I can't explain it perfectly because everyone's a little different too. But yeah, it's like, Matt, if you did your research or you had your understanding, like I have, like I've been studying the internet and the personalities, the people, the reasons, the causes, and the effects over the past year. It takes me about 3 months to get caught up on something. You put me in a new environment, I will adjust within 3 months, I guarantee. People are nervous about me. They're like I'm going to revert to these certain types of things. And it's like, until you talk to me, motherfucker, you have no right to expect me to be one way or the other. Until you talk to me and engage with me. I'm not asking for all your time. I'm just talking about, like Matt said in reference to Bad Empanada, the people that you give the time of day. Like, how much do you reduce the importance of individuals? Apparently a lot. Most people really, really do. And some, they say we're autism pilled, and a lot of them are just socially awkward. Most are just socially awkward. And therefore, I'm not going like that. I'm saying like, they're... Hello? Hey. Okay, I think it's back. Sorry about that. It's just really disappointing. It's disappointing every day. I know about this. Matt Bender is influential. Matt Bender has his hand, his fingers in a few pies, and he's very well known. He's very well received. He doesn't jump out, but Empanada has a point because you are arguing about the political mass. You're arguing about the culture, and the critique is. damn it. Fuck, this stupid mic. How long was that out? How long was that mic out? Can somebody tell me? Can somebody tell me how long the microphone was out, please? Pretty, 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 please. Pretty, please, pretty, please, please, please. Pretty, 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 please. Ain't nobody watching me. Yeah. Okay. Well, shit. I don't know how much of that got picked up or not. But what I was saying is, Matt Binder. Okay, you represent the culture. So the discount Sam Cedar thing lands on you because you're representing that culture without addressing some of the concerns that keep. Okay, it's fine that cultures develop as this happens in political punditry, entertainment. What do they call it? Infotainment spheres, right? It's fun. That's natural and that's good. But then the culture is strangling the opportunity for the reasons for the political discourse to become an actual ubiquitous and helpful asset to humans. You must recognize some of the natural human nature dilemmas that exist in this contest of cultures and narratives. You have to address them. I think going Too Bad Empanada is like an attempt to do that, but you're not going to get that from him. Well, you might. We'll see. We got 4 hours of this. So whatever. Fuck. They could get through this, and I'm putting all this preface on it for no damn good reason. But none of these guys talk to me. They do it on purpose. I wanted to say, Matt, I'm next. If you want to prove that you're really trying to get the bead on what's going on because you care not about your standings in the world, which I don't think that's a problem. I wouldn't criticize Matt for that. I criticize Matt Leck for that. He's a fucking tool and a half. He's a barnacle on the ship that could be taking us to the promised land. It's a problem. The culty insistence on maintaining the social norms that you guys look at as functional is dysfunctional AF. So yeah, I think this is a good effort. I think this is a good thing. I think this is good with capital G. Good, beautiful, true. But if you really want to prove it, it's really easy. And I don't know if that got picked up or not either, but if anyone's like talked to me, if they've gotten through the crunchy exterior and we've had an actual exchange, I'm pretty certain they would confirm that I'm congenial and easygoing. That's my natural energy, man. I want to accommodate and nurture what's good and disincentivize and atrophy what's bad. You know, like, it's not a matter of sensitivity. It's a matter of we should talk to decide what it is a matter of, right? I don't think that would be a bad idea. And that's the one way that you can both, anybody, any of you, but I mean, Matt seems friendly and on the level. I think we'd have a good exchange. And also, this is an indication that he's trying to offset the stank of the Illuminati, leftist mafia. I smell tension on the majority front. And that's what you get for fostering this Leninist bullshit when Brooks, who could make that argument, and I have a feeling he would have adjusted, he would have had some observation that synthesized the contrast. It's not as simple as saying workers. What the fuck is work? Or universal health care. What is health? You want these performative victories to be like, look what we got in your face, right wing. That's not helping anybody. So, Anna, look me up. DM me on Twitter at Timothy Peer. Capital T, capital P, the rest are lowercase. If you reach out, I will be very congenial. I'll be respectful, and you can set the terms. This goes for anybody, but I mean, it's just heartbreaking and disturbing and telling and confirming and affirming and substantiating and validating and verifying and justifying the nature, being none, of the response and engagement that I get. My expectations are not high. I just want some kind of real discourse. And because this platform policing culture, like choking versus growing, like it thinks it's growing it, but it's really choking it. Calling itself left when it's just a deference to traditions that were dysfunctional when they began, no less how they'd end now. fetishizing unions when unions have only brought racism and nationalism, and they make the product itself less quality. They make the employer limited because they have to care for their employee from cradle to grave. And they say, well, that should be done. No, it shouldn't. Why the fuck would you say that? Well, you must be a libertarian. No, I'm not. I'm for lots of regulation, but by the right people in the right ways. It's so dumb that people don't connect cause and effect. They just make associations and imitate based off what they perceive as being the goer at the top. It's all hierarchy based. It's the same thing as on the right, except it's a bunch of pussy ass bitches on the left. He's a pussy ass bitch. He must be. You're like, the alphas are back. That's hilarious. But what are you going to do? Cut alphas out? When you do that, then everyone does what you're doing. They run around competing with each other in passive aggressive ways. You get diminishing returns. You don't know what you could talk about because you need someone to clean the shit up. Brooks acted as an anchor. I don't know for sure, but it seems like he did. And now that you don't have that anchor, you're fucking not doing good. But because we need you, you are in your numbers and your responses, it seems like you're growing, but you're also not. You're dying right in front of our eyes. It is doomed to fail, and not only fail, it will serve as an albatross or an anchor around all of our necks. The necks that try to hold our heads high and say some of us can be fucking manly and leftist, which means new and proper solution that helps the most people. It doesn't mean deferring to something from 1873 with a bunch of racist farmers after that to make it seem like the powers of the people against the capitalists. Or talking about South American, more cults coming to power, and then American capital interests fighting and suppressing them when they only wanted, man, that is it's such a cherry-picked and dysfunctional representation of the fact. In a lot of cases, Dr. Burgess, DM me. When you're ready to fucking put that bullshit to bed, when you're ready to grow up, when you're ready for me to treat you like I want to think that you deserve to be treated, or bring a case against me about how snotty and condescending I am. Put me in my place, doctor. I see the things that Burgess puts up. He puts up the postcards on his, and they're in response to the same criticism that I'm making. And Burgess is a little smarter, so he knows that you can't put me in the Dave Rubin pigeonhole. I don't fit in that pigeonhole. In fact, I fucking break the pigeonholes. They can't do it, so they're just let's ignore him until he goes away. Or turns into Dave Rubin, so we'd be like, we knew he was Dave Rubin. Sorry, guys. I'm actually smart, experienced. I know what a lot of this shit is made out of. You guys just look at the shadows on the cave wall. That's really what's going on. It's not about me being better. It's about the thing that we're trying to talk about, the thing that we're looking at, the cause that produces the effect, not the illusion after the effect, not the after effect, the cause. Please DM me at Timothy Peer, capital T, IMOTHY, capital P, no space, lowercase e, lowercase r, on Twitter. We can share Gmails, discourse link, something. Give me 5 minutes of your time. And if that is enjoyable, we could do more minutes. But somebody from the cult needs to reach out to the one smart guy that's on the scene now. With the only guy you had was President Sunday. When Sam Cedar, Destiny, there's a Vouch, TYT matters, but I don't want to include them in this because I think they're really trying to evolve and I see them doing good stuff. Again, Emma was on there yesterday and I don't agree with her perspective because she's got that fucking post-Brooks Leninism disease. She's saying things she said something about a girlfriend breaking up, having a boyfriend that's no good for her, and I'm listening to her and it's like she has crazy mouth. None of what you said makes sense. These people put the burden on you. I don't understand. That's your fault. That might be true, but without a third person to make that qualification, it's really just groupthink. And you're using a power differential of being I will ignore this to make it not real. And again, that feeds in the pipeline into right-wing right-wing radicalism, as well as normie stagnation and suspension, it's just like shoveling the food into the beast's mouth. Okay, sorry, here we go.
You put discount
This is
Cedar for
completely irrelevant.
all
My
right.
stream is a thing that I do like 4 times a month when I
discount.
want to make some extra money, right? It's
It's
not
all
something
good.
that's serious.
All
So
right.
I never set up video with guests because I have a guest once every 6 months.
That's cool.
Is that
Let's,
sufficient
do,
answer?
let's do this. I'm discount Sam Cedar. Cool. Let's do it. And you are
No problem,
bad,
discount Sam Cedar.
bad Empanada. Cool. Okay.
Okay, that's N. That's a different letter entirely. It's N. Empanada. Anyway, we can talk about the actual topic that we wanted to talk about, which is just interested in your perception of the whole Nazi Argentina thing.
Okay. We should pretty much let people know where this all started, right?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Sure. So
I believe you posted a tweet
Sure.
trying to explain the Mexican American who killed like 8 people in a mass shooting covered in Nazi tattoos with like a History Channel article about Nazis in South America.
No, that's actually not exactly what it was, but yeah. Basically, it was the discourse around whether people with Latino or Hispanic names, because the right wing was pushing this whole idea that this Mexican American could not possibly be a Nazi because of their name. They were really focusing on the fact that
His name.
Well, his name and also the color of his skin, his background being from a Hispanic family and having a Latino origin. So they were basically saying there was an article from Axios, The Rise of White Nationalist Hispanics. And Mike Solana, who's this like right-wing VC, shared it and was sort of poo-pooing the idea that this could be a thing.
Ain't nobody here? Man, fuck you guys. Really, like, fucking crazy. You deserve Trump to get elected again. I mean, like, that's really what we need to fight against, right? Keep talking about Marianne Williamson being a discount Bernie Sanders and, I guess the blah, 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 and workers and oppressed people and BIPOC and POC and all this stuff that isn't even the identity that you represent personally. No less. Understand. You don't understand it. You don't get it. Being able to talk the talk and imitate it is not what getting it means. Phony fucking imitators that have a grip on all of this shit, all of it. And then dumbasses like Elon Musk see it, and then they think it's the Jews. And not just the Jews, it's George Soros acting on behalf of the globalist underworld of Jewish the cabal since the beginning of time or something. Like, it's not just one observation. It has to attach to this other narrative. And like, we're better than that, guys. But the ones who have come out to split the difference do it to ill effect. And then when someone screams, hey, new input, compelling and salient insight, or at the very least, going by your own standards, it would be something to meme content about for the clips, because you'd have this brash, arrogant, fucking rowdy honky dude coming out of nowhere that you can, he goes, blah, 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 he's crazy, he's all over the place, blah, 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 and he doesn't know what he's talking about. That would be good content. That would be good content for you to abuse me. But I think you see that you cannot do that. And it's a challenge. And you have to actually think, because I challenge your assumptions. And you're in a habit, you're a process of being too lazy to do anything about that. What you're not lazy about is holding other people to impossible standards based on aesthetics, optics, and hollow performative imitation. I'll be back. Nobody's here. It doesn't fucking matter. Hey, check it out. Let's see here. You know what? I got shit to do, actually. I got shit to do, and I'd rather be happy. This is just fucking so depressing and upsetting. Is anybody there? Nobody's here? Fuck you all. Fuck you. You don't deserve me. You don't deserve anything good except what you're gonna get. I'll do this again tomorrow. I'm gonna come out and actually, like, maybe I'm going to look into, because I thought they were talking about general things. If somebody's here, please let me know. I would feel terrible if you were here and all you got was me being angry at you. If you're here, I'm not angry at you, is the thing. I'm just fucking angry. And anybody that doesn't see that and understand that simply and easily is just like, oh, so rage-inducing. But there are billions of other people, so I just want to mark you off as not worth my time and move on. Where are the people, places, things, and ideas that are worth not just my time, but our time? Because right now, other people are using that. And they're going to keep taking it. And they're going to take more. And they're going to take more. And before we know it, which is now, it's going to be too late. So fuck you all. I'll see you tomorrow. The Binder Bad Empanada thing is worthwhile and good. And I'm glad that Binder did it. I want to give it the attention it deserves. But fuck you. Oh.